When you begin advertising for a tenant, I encourage you to place ads in 4 spots: Craigslist, Zillow, Cozy, and a physical yard sign. Let me talk about all of those right now. The ad on Craigslist should be obvious. It should be self-explanatory. A lot of people use Craigslist when they're looking for a place to live. However, the drawback to this is that ad on Craigslist will only be seen by people searching Craigslist. The ad on Zillow and Cozy, by contrast, will be aggregated to a multitude of different websites. In addition to these 3 websites, I also recommend putting a physical for rent sign in the yard. Now, I know this sounds quaint, like, who really calls people based on those yard signs? You'd be surprised. You can pick up a physical for rent sign at any big box retailer like Home Depot or Lowe's, and on it, you should write 4 things. Number 1, you should write the number of bedrooms and bathrooms. Number 2, write the date of availability. Number 3, write the price. And number 4, write your phone number. Don't write anything else. You don't want to clutter it with too much information. So this is sort of the opposite of designing an online ad. On a physical yard sign, you want to lead with the basics and just leave it there. Attach a flyer box to this for rent sign. And inside of that flyer box, include handouts that have a photo of the property plus your written ad, the same one that you posted online. They might want to call you from home rather than when they're out on the street passing by your house. Now, let me tell you a little story. When we first started doing this, we didn't want to write the price on the yard sign because we thought, well, the price is going to change every year. Big mistake. We ended up getting flooded with phone calls from unqualified tenants, people who walked by and they saw the sign and they were looking for something in like the $500 per month price point. When they found out it was $1,500 a month, it was just a big waste of time. It wasted their time and it wasted our time. It actually really surprised me because this is not the type of neighborhood where you would find something at the price point that they were looking for. But you can't assume that other people necessarily know the same things that you do. You have to tell them. And if you don't tell them the price of the property, you're going to get a lot of unnecessary phone calls. So, if you've done those 4 things, Craigslist, Zillow, Cozy, and a physical yard sign, and let's say a week goes by and you're not getting any prospects, what should you do? Well, assuming that you've done your homework and assuming that your pricing is reasonable, I would not start by dropping the price. You want dropping the price to be your last resort, not your first. So I would keep the price where it is and instead start tweaking other variables. Number 1, tweak your photos. I often talk to other landlords who are like, hey, how come I'm not getting any inquiries? And I'll take a look at their ad, and 9 times out of 10, the problem is the photos. The problem is usually the photos just aren't that good. Or maybe they're good, but there are just not that many of them. Or both. The person with the most best photos wins, meaning you need high quantity and high quality. That's the reason that I included a detailed lesson about photography within this module. So if you're not finding prospects, if you're not getting the number of leads that you want, number 1, look at the quality of your photos. Number 2, set up a website for that property. Now, I didn't start with this recommendation because it's not necessary for all rentals. You might have very high rental demand in your area, and you might have great success renting out your property. You might list it on Craigslist and on Cozy, and the next day, your inbox has exploded with inquiries and your phone is ringing off the hook, and that's fantastic. If that's the case, you don't need to bother setting up a website. That is not necessary. But if you're having trouble finding leads, and you've priced it correctly, and your photos are good, then the next step is to create a dedicated website for your property and make sure that this website includes a video tour and loads of photos. People love video tours. Rather than getting in the car and battling traffic and driving across town just to find out that they don't like the place, they would love to first watch a 5-minute video tour. And if they like what they see, they're going to be more excited to see your place. So build a website, and on other pages include information about the property plus a bunch of other photos. And by the way, here's a bonus tip. If you have just one property, if this is your first rental property, you can dedicate that entire website to just this one listing. But if you have multiple properties, you can and should list all of your properties on the same website, because this will help you cross-promote your listings. You'll start getting more word-of-mouth referrals once you can cross-promote all of your properties. So at this point in the game, tip number 1, you have reassessed the quality of your photos, and tip number 2, you've set up a dedicated website with a video tour. That itself may be enough to start generating interest. So if you're dealing with a problem that you have advertised your property and you're not getting any leads, those 2 little pieces of extra credit may be enough to solve the issue. But if it's not, then here are more ways that you can really supercharge this. Tip number 3 is to ask for word-of-mouth referrals. Talk to the neighbors. If you own a multi-unit building, talk to the residents in the other units. Let them know that there's a vacancy. If you have a single-family home, talk to other neighbors on the same street. When you talk to people, let them know that you are offering a $100 or $200 incentive, like a gift card, if they find your next tenant. So if they recommend somebody who applies and signs the lease and moves in, you'll give them a $100 gift card to wherever, local restaurant or Target or Starbucks. Believe me, people will start talking to their friends. Tip number 4 is to post flyers at local community organizations like college campuses or church bulletin boards. A lot of people look to these bulletin boards when they're trying to get information. Now, I know many of us are thinking about everything happening on the internet, so the suggestion of doing something that's offline, that's not digital, might feel quaint or antiquated. But, people still communicate offline. People still communicate IRL, in real life. I wouldn't start with posting flyers because it's time consuming. So it's not plan A, but it is plan B. By the way, notice what I did not recommend. Notice that I didn't recommend posting on Facebook. Let me explain why I intentionally left that out. This may be controversial, but I believe that you should not rent to friends or family. I believe that it is best not to mix business with friendship. Now, I know that I am going to get emails from you saying, oh, but my mother-in-law really wants to rent from me, or oh my, you're going to send me emails with your specific case. And I'm just telling you a very generalized rule. Use your own judgment, of course, but heed this warning. It is unwise to rent to somebody whom you are not willing to evict, if eviction were necessary. And unfortunately, for better or for worse, when we rent to friends or when we rent to family, we're not going to evict them. I mean, not without ruining the relationship. So if you rent to a friend and you do something that they don't like if you have to withhold part of their security deposit for a very legitimate, documentable reason, they're likely to still hold it against you. And it's likely that that friendship is going to be over. And sometimes if they feel like being late with the rent, or if they can only pay 80% of the rent that you're asking, sometimes they feel like they're entitled to go ahead with that. And if you charge them late fees, they're going to resent you. They're going to say, dude, you know I'm going through a hard time. Aren't we buddies? And that is a difficult position to be in. And that's why I typically recommend not renting to friends or family. So unless you have a very, very large social network with access to a lot of strangers, I wouldn't recommend tapping your existing social networks. I recommend letting personal be personal and letting business be business. And again, you're an adult, use your own judgment. I know that there are special cases, so take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, but that's just my 2 cents. So in this lesson, we've covered how to advertise your property on websites like Zillow, Cozy, Craigslist, and through physical signs in the yard. And we've also covered what to do once you advertise your property if you're not getting the types of leads and results that you are looking for. Next, let's cover what to do once those leads start contacting you. How do you handle this? How do you process this? That's coming up in the next lesson.